Alrighty, we'll open up the June 11th,
Just pass that down to Mr.
2018 Groveland Board of Selectmen meeting at 8:32. We'll stand now for a pledge of allegiance. 6:32. It's been a long day. 6:32, thank you. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so the first item of business is resident and public comments. I think we have just one at this moment,
I think two.
and that would be Mr. Jim Day. Thank you, Mr. Day.
Thank you for having me this evening. My name's Jim Day, 2 Cottles Ferry Lane, also the physical education teacher at the Bagnell School. And I just wanted to come here briefly just to say thank you to the board in person after a full year of our school with the backfield project that went on behind Bagnell. And the reason I'm here tonight is because last Friday, our kids got to have their community field day for the Bagnell School in the back of the school, and it was a wonderful event. Parents were out, teachers were out, kids were out, a full-day event that they had, grilling hot dogs, grilling hamburgers, and the faces of the kids to have this beautiful field to play on for the first time in, I'd say, over 30 years that we've had that grass out there. And so I just wanted to take a second, make sure I came by, thank you for all the work that you've done over a couple of years that it was to get that done. And I brought a little something for the board, and with permission of the chair, I would like to present, it is a collage picture of the field day, and the kids signed with a big thank you. And I know you all put in tremendous amount of work, not just the board, but Denise with all her organizing and the planning that went involved. Also want to shout out to the highway department with the mowing and that they do and adding to their job. But with permission for the chairman, I'd like to present this to the board to Mr. Dunn for all that volunteerism he did with the backfield. Give that to him, and then the board can do what they would like to with this board. But I just want to show you how appreciative we are at Bagnell and the kids were for that event. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. No problem. Maybe we can hang it. Thank you.
I was going to say, along with Mr. Dunn, big thank should go to the summer program as well, that contributed a lot of the funds that went to put that together. And can't say enough about Mr. Dunn's work. He is just inexhaustible in his generosity, I would say. And thank you very much, all the kids. So for generations to come, hopefully we'll enjoy that field from now on. Thank you, Mr. Day.
Thank you for coming in. Your kind words.
Oh, yes, I forgot about Mr. Tracy.
Hi, Tracy Guilford, 4 Abbott Circle. I was before the board a few weeks ago and mentioned the possibility of bringing back Groveland Day. And I know it was during budget cycle, so we kind of, it didn't get put on the agenda. So I wanted to come before the selectmen and just ask for 2 weeks from now to have it put on the agenda as a discussion item over the next 2 weeks. I'm going to poll the nonprofit groups that had participated to see if there is interest in bringing back Groveland Day, and then go from there.
Great.
Yeah, so just to that, Tracy, you might want to follow up with Mike Houghton, the chairman of the Recreation Committee, because I know they're still actively discussing Groveland Day as well.
Oh, were they?
It's on
Okay.
their agenda for this week's meeting, I think, so.
Okay.
You may want to just touch base and see what they're thinking, or if they're still
Okay.
planning to hold something
Okay,
going forward.
do you know when they're meeting this week?
I think it's either tomorrow night or Wednesday. They meet at VZ Park.
Okay.
It
All
should be
right.
posted out there, but I do know it
Okay.
was one of their agenda
Oh,
items for
good.
this week.
All right,
If not,
Very
Denise,
good.
maybe we can get
working together.
Tracy some contact information.
Yeah, I
He
can
can
send
reach
you
out
Mike's
to him in his own.
information.
Okay.
I don't know if any other departments are involved or looking to get involved. You might want to reach out town-wide,
Right.
see if maybe fire,
Yeah, well,
police,
police and
the
fire
school.
were interested, possibility of bringing it back. And I know I had talked to at least Boy Scouts I know we're interested, and, you know, I figured 2 weeks will give me enough time now to really nail down and find out if there's going to be enough interest, because I think it was a neat event, and hate to see it disappear completely.
I agree. So we can get him on the agenda?
Yeah, so I
in 2
can put
weeks?
it on there for
All
2
right.
weeks from now, and I'll get you Mike's contact information.
All right, thank you
Who's
so
on the
much.
committee with you?
Huh? There's no committee right now.
Okay.
It's exploratory, you know, a number of people, including some of the firefighters and the police, possibly be interested based on who else might want to participate.
And if memory serves me correctly, there was a particular date that they asked you not to
Yeah,
schedule?
yeah, the Council on Aging has a yard sale at the end of September, so they just requested we don't interfere with their date.
Okay.
All right?
Thank
Very
you,
good.
sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So before we get to the bill warrant, just one more thing. I just want to talk about respect. I've been watching some of the board meetings, and I have to admit I'm guilty of it myself. If we could just show each other a little bit of respect, everybody's going to get a chance to ask as many questions as they want, make as much comments as they want, but if we could not trip over each other while one person has the floor, so we're not breaking each other's train of thought or line of questioning, I'd really be very appreciative of it. And like I said, I'm as guilty as anyone of it, and I'm going to try to refrain, write down my questions, and wait till the person yields the floor to ask mine. Is that agreeable to everybody?
100%.
Thank you. All right, right to the bill warrants. I have a motion to approve payroll warrant 18-49 in the amount of $137,000, $845.96.
I'll second that.
We have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion to approve bill warrant number 18-49 in the amount of $1,221,535.85, which breaks down as follows. Town, $90,365. Pentucket Regional School District assessment is $772,324.76. The light is $187,358.01. Water sewer is $18,479.81. Payroll withholding, $57,180.21. And other, which includes health insurance and grant expenses, a total $95,828.06. Motion to, do we have a motion?
You made the
second?
motion, you need a second.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Yep.
All right. Moving right along, we have May's 2018 Volunteer of the Month, Doug Soper, for his outstanding dedication and volunteerism to the town. So let me just read what we have here. Volunteer of the Month, May 2018, presented to Doug Soper for countless hours volunteering over and above his paid time at VC Park. Doug is always around to help any department that needs it. Currently, he is painting fire hydrants. Doug always goes the extra mile, and he often provides lunch to employees on job sites. I had to come work for you. Volunteers do not necessarily have the time, they have the heart. Thank you for all you do to make the town of Groveland a better place. On behalf of the town and residents, we give you and the community's heartfelt thanks. So if you come up and,
Bill, just take the sticker off the front, please.
oh, and accept this, we'd be honored. Thank you very much. Thank you. We need more volunteers like you, sir. Bring your friends. Okay. You think we can skip? Some of these are gonna be too long. We've got about 19 minutes. Maybe we could have a quick discussion on job posting and job descriptions. Think that'll work? Prior to our public hearing.
Whatever you'd like to do.
So, Selectman Watson, you brought up the issue looking through the notes, do you see anything that you like to see changed, like to address? I'm not quite sure, because none of my pages are numbered.
It's after all of the consultant, it's.
Oh, the
it's
consultant
towards the
literature?
end. It's very much towards the end.
Yeah, it's gotta be 60, 70 pages in anyways. So we have a list of all the positions we've filled in the past 2 years, and we have a small list of current open positions, is that correct? Town planner, custodian, administrative assistant, and cemetery seasonal groundskeeper?
Right, so some of those have now been filled, but that's what we discussed at the May 14th meeting. that
Correct.
had
The
been
administrative
posted.
assistant has been filled, correct?
Correct, and the cemetery seasonal groundskeepers have been filled.
We filled those last week, so we have 2 current openings.
Yes.
And the two that are open, I'm trying to find what's, I can't find mine either, buried in, like you said, but the two that are open are,
2 that are open, the town planner, which we've had open for a little while.
and how's that going?
We have a handful of resumes. I'm not sure that anyone really has experience that we're looking for. We have some people that are just starting out that want to learn the job. We have people that want to make a career change. We don't actually have anyone currently doing the job that has applied.
So we don't have anyone yet that stands out. So we're just gonna
Correct.
wait it out and see what,
Yeah, I mean, I may repost it again now that it's closer to July 1st on the MMA website and see, what type of candidates are out there. I will say there's quite a few town planner positions open across the state right
I
now.
saw them in the thing.
So I don't know if it's just difficult for people to fill this specialty role or not, but, and then the custodian position, I actually was just looking to start scheduling interviews because we received a good number of resumes on that.
You all set, Selectman?
I'm good.
Yeah.
So I would like to request moving forward that if that administrative assistant position becomes open again, since it does have a component that works directly with the Board of Selectmen, I'd like to request to be part of that interview process. I don't think any of these other positions necessarily, I mean, I think at some point when the road commissioner position becomes available, I'd like to be part of that process.
I think that's a much more important position than the administrative assistant, so I would concur with that statement.
Right, so if I may, so the way it's worked in the past for sort of department head level positions is I've weeded down the candidates to 3 and then presented them to the board for public interviews, and then the board would then interview and select a candidate. If that works for you, we can continue with that process. Again, it wasn't, the administrative assistant wasn't intentionally left from the board, but it's just sort of not how we've done things for sort of that level positions in the past.
So I don't have any belief that it was done intentionally, but I think that because that person sort of serves in a function if you're not available, and we're sort of directly interacting with them in sort of a different way than other town positions, I just would like to get a sense of that person prior to that person being hired. And I sort of see that. I know that that position's been sort of redefined, but I sort of see that position similar to the position that Nancy Lewandowski held at one point. And because of that sort of connection between that role and the Board of Selectmen, I would just like to have a sense of that person. It doesn't mean that necessarily I still would really value your position and your recommendation. I would just like to meet the person.
Selectman Watson,
Uh,
anything?
Yes, these ones on the top, youth services, librarian, accountant, library director, conservation agent, custodian, et cetera, et cetera. These people are working for somebody else. When I brought up last meeting about the administrative assistant, treasury collections clerk, when it was brought up, I'll have to look at my notes to see when it was originally brought up. Back in 2015, the administrative assistant was to work originally part-time for the Board of Selectmen. And we interviewed 3 people, and we chose one. And I just think that if the person's going to be working for the Board of Selectmen in some capacity, that the selectmen ought to have some sort of control over it. Just the same as, for instance, like the town accountant doesn't work for the selectmen. Town accountant works basically for the finance director. So the person that is supervising or responsible for them should have some say. The same thing with like the electrical inspector here, works for the building inspector, basically, and not for the Board of Selectmen. But the administrative assistant, part of their job was to be working for the Board of Selectmen, and we should have been able to weigh in, like we did in 2015. And I know it was brought up at the time when the administrative assistant was moved into as a treasury collections clerk in April 2016. That was at the recommendation of the finance director, which the administrative assistant at that time, it was a part-time job. So then somebody left, the treasury collections clerk left. There's no need of the selectmen weighing in on the treasury collection clerk because that person doesn't work for the selectmen, but the administrative assistant in some capacity does. So I just think that the administrative assistant, that treasury collections clerk that was just appointed, the selectmen should have been able to weigh in on the job description, the job qualifications, so that it could have been done like it was done back in 2015, where we were given a job description and asked to weigh in on it. And I think I had asked to move it forward right away after we did some changes on it, so that we could get somebody on board right away. So that was, I think that the people that they're working for should be able to weigh in on it.
Understood, and your concerns are duly noted, and in the future, you will, for this particular position, you'll kind of weigh in with future boards, see what their perspective is. I don't want to hold future boards to the same standard where they might not share the same.
Right, so just from my knowledge then, so since the person works in my office for more than half of the time, will I have a recommendation? If not, I'd rather split the positions back out to 2 part-time positions.
I would say you'd have a huge, your recommendation would, in my opinion, would carry the lion's share of the weight, only because 160 hours a week, they'll work for us 8, maybe, out of 160, so
And I do
really,
think-
it's so disproportionate to us as it is to you that I think as long as the board feel comfortable with your recommendation and the person seemed very, very qualified, thank you, for the position.
Well, and if I just might comment on that, Lisa, before
Can
you
I
say.
ask a question, though? So I'm very comfortable with you making the recommendation. I guess my preference around that is you bring your top candidates, we sort of meet them, you tell us what your recommendation is, rather than just having one person come in as a
That's fine.
recommendation.
Yep,
You
that-
know what
yep,
I'm saying?
And that's fine, I agree. I just think because over the years, that position has changed from what it used to be when Nancy was in it, that the board does not directly interact with that candidate. All the work is sort of facilitated through me, so there's very little interaction between board members and that administrative assistant these days. So,
Because you serve as the point person and you delegate those job assignments down the line.
But I want to add to that, for possible future discussion, I become very concerned that you do so much that if you were not around, what would happen?
No, believe me, and I have those same concerns. But
And I
everybody that
really-
works with me, everyone that works for me, I cross-train them. They know where, so Caitlin started on Friday, and her first day I showed her where the passwords are kept, the keys are kept, the locked file cabinet keys. I mean, so she sort of knows where things are in case something should happen to me, even in an emergency situation. They are all sort of cross-trained to do the portions, I mean, not everything.
Yeah.
But they can handle a very large portion of the job without me being there. I
Okay.
believe in cross-training and training the staff.
Okay.
Okay. Just-
So if you were to take this up for an argument that, number one, you're a personnel director, you're a head of personnel. So every one of these positions down the road has to answer to someone other than possibly you, but if it's cemetery, they gotta answer to a cemetery person. So at what point in time everyone that come in, should you be talking to the head of the cemetery or the head of the highway? At what point in time do we out and say, well, we don't need to, Denise can handle this? That's my point.
Again, I'm fine with the candidates coming before the board. I just want to make sure that, the position has changed so that there's more oversight by me than this board. The board isn't interacting directly, and they are sitting in my office where there's cash and where there's other, so I just want to make sure that it's not someone that doesn't have sort of some of the experience that we need to do both jobs. So I'm fine with the board reviewing that specific position. I'm fine with you reviewing any position. I just would like to know that now before we continue to schedule interviews and then get to a point where a candidate's standing before you and we get into that discussion that took place at the last meeting. Because I didn't really think that was the time for that discussion when she was here. So whatever you guys want to do, whatever job descriptions you want to review, I am perfectly fine with that. I just like to know in advance.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't particularly want to get involved in minutia of interviewing an electrical inspector that, I mean, someone else is much more qualified to judge their qualifications as a candidate than I am. So I would defer to the electrical people as I would the librarian and other things.
So, sorry.
So I agree with Chair O'Neill. The only thing that I would add, though, respectfully, is that I think we need to be very careful in that the Board of Selectmen is the hiring authority of the town. I definitely defer to Denise's judgment on a lot of issues, but we need to recognize that we don't have a town manager right now, so we have to be very careful that we're still serving the role that we're supposed to serve.
Yes,
that
and I
is-
think everybody
So I'm
that-
not speaking about these, because I agree with you 100%, but when we start talking about department heads and that type of thing, I think we need to
That's
maintain that role.
completely different. Most
Well,
of these
no.
people were,
Selectman Dunn was saying that he was not sure that we should necessarily even be involved with department heads.
I didn't say-
no, I
didn't
don't,
say that,
that's
at
not
all.
what I heard at
I
all.
didn't say that. What I
Okay.
said is that at what point in time does the personnel director have to turn around, if she's talking about the town planner, should she be going to the planning board to talk about that position, or the chair of the planning board, and go that route? Or if it's a cemetery, does she go to the cemetery head and talk to the cemetery about her final person?
Right,
That's
so
exactly what I'm saying.
if I can just clarify what happens when we post the jobs. So with all of these positions, the position are posted through me, resumes come in through me, and then they're disseminated to the respective department. If they are part-time positions, I pretty much leave the full discretion to the department head overseeing them. I don't really get involved with it. I let them do their interviews and then recommend a candidate. When it becomes benefit eligible or full-time positions, I participate in the interview process, I check the references, I go through that process. Collaboratively, we then make a recommendation to this group. So it's not me, even the custodian, I've asked the police chief to sit in because he has that building over there, so we both collaboratively. So I don't interview unless it's directly my staff. It's not me conducting the interviews. I always put together a team of who they will be working with or working for, whether it's a specific board member from the planning board or, the conservation. Mike Dempsey sat in when we interviewed for that position. So again, it's not just my recommendation. We sort of work together and then recommend the best candidate towards this board. So that's how the process actually works, just so you're aware.
Great point, but like the custodian, do you also touch bases with the fire chief because he cleans those buildings, and the library because they clean those buildings?
So I haven't, just because the more people you add, the fire chief was part-time, and the library director, they work different hours, so I hadn't involved them in the past. I don't usually add everybody that's involved, I pick people that can participate.
Almost set.
You all set? All set. So we good with that discussion then? All right. We're at 6:56. I don't think we can reasonably discuss anything else on the agenda before we get to the public hearing at
You-
7 o'clock.
You could read the correspondences, if you wanted to at least read those and acknowledge that.
Sure.
Read slowly.
I took the Evelyn Woodhead sped reading course. So I've got correspondence, minutes from the May 14th, 2018 meeting. We've got minutes from the May 29th, 2018 meeting. We've got notice of a license suspension from the Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission to the Tea Garden. Notice of payment in lieu of suspension from the ABCC regarding the Tea Garden. That was a mouthful. So Code of conduct is quick, but I don't think it's gonna be that quick. You think it can be that quick? Well, it's your item.
It is my item. And
If you can discuss it in 2.5 minutes, shoot.
so I requested that the town's code of conduct policy be added. Obviously, without being specific, there's been incidents, and I just think it's helpful to sort of revisit that, make sure that people are aware of it, or people pretty much sign it as part of their
New hire
onboarding
paperwork.
process. So maybe it makes sense to send out a copy of that to all town employees, because there may be some that have been here for a long time that aren't aware of it, and maybe didn't even sign it as part of their new hire process.
So I can certainly send it out with the July 1st policies. When we brought it in 2015, everyone had to sign it and return
Okay.
it. But I can certainly do
So
that
I
on
would
an
request
annual
just a
basis.
reminder that this is sort of the basis for appropriate behavior for town employees, and this is just a reminder at the request of the Board of Selectmen.
Sure.
Or you can put my name if others aren't comfortable with it.
I'm fine with it, just
Oh, I
a
think it's a good
reminder, a
reminder.
refresher course. I mean, I don't think it hurts anybody. Most businesses do that on a regular basis, send out their sexual harassment policy, their conflict of interest policies and things like that. You have to pass a test every year, every quarter, or whatever. So I think that's not a big deal. Seeing as it's 7 o'clock, so should we move now to the open hearing as we about?
Yes.
It works for me. So the Groveland Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Monday, June 11, 2018, at 7 PM in the main meeting room, Town Hall, 183 Main Street, Groveland, Mass., on the application of the Town of Groveland Water Commissioners for a permit renewal for earth removal activities on property located on Zachary Lane, Groveland, Mass., and shown on Assessor's Map 33, parcels 6 and 10. A copy of the plans are filed in the town clerk's office and are available for viewing Mondays, 9 AM to 8 PM, and Tuesday through Thursday from 9 AM to 4:30 PM. Let's see. Okay, I guess we'll need to have a motion to roll call.
So motion to open the public hearing,
So we'll
and
need
it's a roll call vote.
a motion to open the public hearing. So I'll make that motion to open the public hearing. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Good, so we'll take a roll call. Selectman Carpenter?
Yes.
Selectman Dunn?
Yes.
Selectman Watson?
Yes.
And Selectman O'Neill, yes. Okay. So I guess we can bring up the water and sewer folks. Glad to have you. If you wouldn't mind going to the podium, just so everybody can hear your stellar voice and See how handsome you
Thank
are.
you,
in
Mr.
the
Chairman. John Gray, Water Commissioner. And I'd just like to refer you to Barbara Icahnian's letter from June 1st, 2018 to the Board of Selectmen. And in it, Bob writes, "This letter and attachments are a report of the Town of Groveland's earth removal and site inspector for the renewal of the earth removal permit issued to the Groveland Water Department by the Board of Selectmen dated July of 2017. And according to Bob, as you can see in the letter, all the permit requirements have been met at this time. There's a very small amount of sand left that is stockpiled in a pile of stone tailings. The sand and tailings will be removed in the next 3 months. And you can read the rest of Bob's letter, but I think he basically says that it's going to, I guess, take place the next few months to up to a year. So, and Tom Cusack from the Water Department can answer questions about more details probably about the permit, if you have any questions for him.
We'll start with Selectman Carpenter. Any questions?
No, thank you.
Selectman Dunn.
So basically, it's just gonna, it sounds like it's gonna be seed and trees will be put back, and it will be put back for the, conservation requirements and all that.
Yeah, I mean, it's been happening in quadrants.
Yep.
I'll be quite frankly, I don't know where.
Oh,
they
I'm
are.
sorry. Could we just grab Tom a microphone?
I'll go.
Oh, appreciate it.
Tom Cusick, Superintendent for the Groveland Water Department. So, I mean, it's been in operation now 3 years almost now, Bill? Three and a half years now. So, and it's been done in quadrants. So as they've been working through it, they've been going back and putting topsoil and seeding it. I haven't been out there lately, but, you know, I know Bob's been out there, and like you said, he summarizes it there. From a time frame perspective, the permit's out to another year. I think that's conservative. I think he seems to think that it might end up maybe getting done a little bit sooner than that. But he's recommending a 1-year renewal. So-
Okay, so the 3 months is just, it said 3 months, I thought.
3 months is basically the sand.
Oh,
We still have the loom,
oh, to deal
which
with.
is, as you know,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can we get, Mr. Angelini, can we get you on the microphone too, or maybe up to the podium?
It's a party.
Hi, Bill Angelini, 7 Dewhurst, Groveland. Basically, the sand is, like Dana told me, it's about 3 months out. He'll probably be done with the sand. And he's screening the loom now, so the loom takes, you know, it depends on, you know,
Sales.
sales in the loom, so
Yep.
that might take a little longer. So we'd probably just need the extra year. And if we're done, we'll just, you know, we'll take off, and if not, we'll, you know, why come back and renew it if we need it?
Right.
That's all, yeah.
I'm good now.
Mr. What?
I don't have any questions.
I've got a couple. What's the stone tailings? How long will that?
That's basically, he'll probably take that back to his yard, Dana, in Raleigh, or make gravel with it at his yard, but that's nothing. He's probably got about, I don't know, 300 or 400 yards of that. That's no big deal.
Couple of months' work, you're saying?
No, not even.
Not even.
No. No.
And the loom, I just want to ask you a question. What do you do with the loom? Because I think we could use some around here. I
Yeah?
think the pines. Am I mistaken? Couldn't the pines use some loom down there? I see that they were doing some work down there. I'd like to get the rec committee here so I understand the progress and what they have, you know, going on. But aren't they sodding or looming that field down there, the far end?
So they already have, I don't know if they need more. We just trucked in quite a bit of loom and had it spread.
I didn't know that. Where'd you get it?
Oh, God, only, yeah, you know, I mean, I would have thought that at one time, if you had all this loom, and we were looking for all this loom, that somehow a marriage would have taken place.
Well,
I guess not. So, you're selling this loom.
right.
Could we reach out almost immediately to the Recreation Department and find out what they're doing, and if they need loom, we've got a really good source here that's really close to town.
Sure.
And then maybe we can get a deal, or maybe, you know, help us out. I mean, I'm beside myself right now to
I have a
think of how much loom went out, and this field has been like that. Okay, yes, Selectman Carpenter, please take my mind
Procurement
off of
procedures,
this.
I just want to make sure, is it permissible for us to do that?
It is, because like, the likelihood of it being over the threshold is slim,
Okay,
so,
and it's not like a quid pro quo or anything like that? Okay,
no, as long as we're
Buying it
buying it.
at a
Okay.
fair market value,
okay,
and we save on trucking costs.
right.
Yes, Selectman Dunn.
Commissioners, how level is it gonna be? Is it pretty level when you're done? The land, is it pretty level, like mowable
Well,
level?
oh, yeah.
'Cause,
Have you
we-
been in there? I mean,
I haven't
you-
lately, no.
Yeah, not lately, but you've seen it.
Yeah,
But
because I
it's-
had a guy come in, DeWittowitz Farm.
Yeah.
And, they wanna go in and, find land throughout the towns.
Mhm.
And hay them, and give the
Oh,
people
to
back
hay 'em?
money toward their taxes to try and help their tax bill.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So I don't know if the water department would be up in the future, 'cause he's trying to get land and he wants to do 2 to 3 crops a year.
Oh, I
Why,
see.
until they're gonna do something with it, I don't know if they're up.
I mean, yeah, I
don't
mean,
think
that's
the
up,
trees-
that's up,
farm
that's,
up in Wood Hill?
Yeah,
Yeah, he
Yeah.
wants to come over and plant crops?
yeah, he wants to be able to find, and throughout the town, different pieces of land, like he asked about Strawberry Fields, he asked
Hmm.
about Nuns Hill. So, I don't know if you guys would be interested in
Well,
that.
I'd be interested in that, but I'd have to run it by the other commissioners.
Yeah.
Jimmy and Jake are not here
Yeah,
right now.
if you,
Yeah.
what's he
ask the
gonna
chairman,
plant?
he'll get a hold of
What's
me
he
or
gonna
whatever,
put,
but I
hay or
passed it in last week.
crops? Hay or crops? Is it-
Hay and crop, whatever
Yeah,
they can,
yeah.
if they can get good crop out of it, they're gonna,
Mhm.
but they're willing to give money back, and
Yeah.
they weren't the town, they wanted to give the town money, but any, like maybe the water department, I don't know,
Right,
however it
right,
works,
yeah.
but whoever's land it is, but they're trying to
Sure.
find land.
Yeah, land.
Land's hard to come by now for crop hay and haying.
Yeah,
I mean,
it wouldn't be, obviously, we have to discuss it with the
Yeah,
others.
yeah, no, I'm not trying to.
Find out what the
Just a
logistics
conversation
are.
to let you have, you know.
Yeah, majority rules, Bill.
Most of the time.
I mean, some of that loom too, that's gonna be used out there though, too, right?
Yeah,
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 so it's,
putting back down, but he's still got a pile of it he's gotta screen out.
It's a good idea.
Good enough.
Like,
Which one?
Oh,
his idea. The farming idea.
I like his idea, too. Is there anybody else here for public comment on this earth removal?
Mike Dempsey's not here tonight?
It's almost unbelievable. Is he sick?
I actually think he might be away, but
And did he have any thoughts on this?
he hasn't commented the last few years.
Okay, thank you.
He's had more than ample opportunity. I just feel bad. I wonder if he's ill. So if there's no further discussion, no further comment, I guess we're ready to take a vote.
I make a motion that we approve the application of the Groveland Water Commission for a special permit pursuant to Article 5 related to parcel located off of Zachary Lane and Dewhurst Street.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Please roll call for that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
Okay.
still new at this job.
Anything in a public hearing, three roll calls.
Selectman Carpenter.
Yes.
Selectman Dunn.
Yes.
Selectman Watson.
yes,
And I am also in the affirmative. Mr. Angelini, if someone doesn't reach out to you about that loom in the next couple of weeks,
Yeah,
give me a call, a
Okay.
real shout, because we shouldn't be operating in vacuums anymore in this town. We should understand what the left hand is doing with the right and try to get all on board, so we're all pulling the rope in the same direction.
yeah,
Makes life a lot easier, huh?
okay.
I will just comment though, on that. I don't think we need more loom at the Pines. I think we've now paid for everything and they're ready to hydro seed. So I don't think the Pines needs any at this time.
Well,
But
I know the back, the furthest back, but nothing from the end of the parking lot this way has been touched. It's still the
there have been no
same.
plans for that.
No
There's
plans
no
for that.
discussion on that at this time.
Okay,
But I'll reach out to Mike in the morning.
yeah, please. All right, thank you,
Okay,
gentlemen,
thanks a lot.
appreciate your
Appreciate it.
time.
Thank you.
Okay,
So you need a motion and a roll call to close the public hearing?
all right. Can we have a motion to close the public hearing and return to the regular meeting?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing and to return to a regular meeting.
Do we have a second? Roll
May I
call
just comment? It's 7:12 PM.
at 7:12 PM. Thank you. Roll call vote, Ms. Carpenter,
Yes.
Selectman Dunn,
Yes.
Selectman Watson,
Yes.
and I am also in the affirmative. Okay, returning to regular business, we have Fire Department Consultant Review, and we have three different proposals on the table at the moment. Did all of you get a chance to read through them?
Yes.
Did we share any of these with the fire department staff?
Nope. I was not asked to, so I didn't want to share until you had reviewed them and started a discussion on them.
So I would respectfully request that, I sort of have reviewed them and made a decision about which one I think is the best proposal, but I'm sort of, I think they have some different proposals with regard to scope of services, but I am interested to hear from the interim chief, not necessarily about scope of services, but if he's familiar with any of the organizations and has any strong feelings about.
I'm not familiar with any of the ones that I saw on the list tonight.
Okay.
So may I make a comment just to give you a little bit of background? So Municipal Resources and the Collins Center are very well known throughout the municipal business. This is what they do primarily. So they have done numerous reviews of all different realms for municipalities. They do salary surveys and HR reviews, they do departmental reviews, budgets, et cetera. The PR approach was recommended by another company that does primarily different municipal reporting. And that is I believe he said retired fire chief that sort of branched off and does this on the side. So I can attest that 2 out of the 3 are very well-known, that PR approach, I assume they are. I just don't know anything about him personally.
And then my next question is, what was the amount of money that we allocated for this purpose?
$10,000.
So there's $10,000. I will say, when the first response came back, I had a conversation with the chairman of the finance board, and she herself would be willing to convene a meeting of the finance board, and she supported approving additional funds from the reserve fund if you all chose one of the companies over 10,000.
Okay.
She felt this was important, so if it was one of the 2 that were above 10, she would support reserve fund transfer.
So based on that, I want to share that I think Municipal Resources, Inc., in my view, is the most experienced of all the providers that have submitted proposals. If you look at the municipalities that they've worked with, both within Massachusetts, New Hampshire, actually throughout the country, and the scope of what they're proposing to provide is the most comprehensive. The PR approach is a much less expensive, but I think it's much less comprehensive. And then the Edward Collins, I don't think that we would be getting more, and it's almost $2,000 more. So that's my analysis that I share with the rest of the group.
Thank you. Mr. Dunn, would you like to comment on anything? that you-
Yes, I would agree with what Selectman Carpenter said. The Municipal Resource, Inc. is the one that I was zeroing in on. I think the one for 4,900 is not, I didn't feel comfortable reading the paperwork and having enough about the fire. I think the Edward Collins one definitely was more money, and it wasn't as put together as the Municipal Resource. I would like to say yes, that's the one I would like to go with. I would like to, if we get done with this conversation with the firemen that are in front of us, try to do a quick overlay of what this company has said they could possibly do, and see if it's something they think that the department needs. I mean, I'm not saying they're here to vote, but just to see if it sounds good to them,
So-
whatever one we narrow in on.
While we're in meeting, is it possible to give them a copy of that for them to begin reviewing it as we have the conversation?
We
Well-
don't know where we're gonna go yet, though.
I'll be honest with you, I don't know during this meeting if any of them will have the time to review 50-some-odd pages of material and give a reasonably intelligent opinion on that quick study. I think we're better off giving them some copies, because they're directly impacted by any decision we make, let's face it. And then, my suggestion might be that Denise delegate to someone to call on some of their references that they've given, to find out what they liked, what they didn't like, where they felt it was worth the money they spent or not, what they'd like to see changed, what, things like that, so that we have a little bit more information in front of us, and then maybe narrow it down to 2, and then bring them in for a personal interview, so that we can ask them more specific questions and detailed questions on what they think. This isn't gonna happen overnight. I'd rather take an extra 5 minutes and do it right the first time than really messing it up and messing you guys up. And let's, hit the home run right out of the gate, so to speak. But that would be my idea. I also agree, on the surface, I kinda like MRI as well. I'm in agreement with Selectman Carpenter and Selectman Dunn. But I'm not the only one, and personal interview may change my mind entirely. Selectman Watson?
I myself like the municipal resources, except for some of the costs. And they're looking at $14,000 for the study, but a couple paragraphs later kind of caught me. Fees for professional services not contained in the scope of work will be billed at the rate of $125 per hour, and will require an additional amendment to the parties' agreement prior to the commencement of work. So that probably would be something that's outside the scope of what they submitted. But I think that copy should be given to the fire department and, of all 3, and let them weigh in on part of that discussion also.
I agree, and as far as the $125, I think as long as we get a clear understanding of what would be excluded from this SOS, then we'd have a better understanding whether we're going to incur such fees or whether we'll be exempt from such fees. And that's another good reason to bring them in here, to find out exactly what's going on. Mr. Dunn?
So if we were to give the 3 copies to the fire department, they were able to do their due diligence with the 3 copies. And then when it came down to picking one, when we negotiated with them, couldn't we give them a scope of work of what we've gone back and forth and say, we want you to go with this, this, and this?
So they've already been given a scope of work, that's what they all bid
Right, I
on.
know that,
So they
but
all
I'm saying
received
so
the
they don't
same
go
scope
over.
of work.
We-
Right, I mean, I think this talks to if you want to add additional things in there. So that would be something that if the board is happy with the scope that we've already provided, there shouldn't be any additional costs. Unless something comes up during the way and they say, oh, we would recommend, now looking into this, and you all say, yes, we want to explore that a little further. I don't really know what would be outside the scope that they've already quoted on, but
So, can we do that? Can we get them copies, and in the next 2 weeks, if you can have somebody reach out to, say, a handful of each of their references, ask the same kind of questions, and get an idea? I really need you guys to buy into everything. Because at the end of the day, this is gonna directly impact your lives and the lives of everybody in the town. So you need to take ownership as much as we do, that you're on board with, these are the right folks, we're behind it, we believe in this study, we think it's gonna help us out, and we wanna go for it,
We also get a copy of what your initial scope was, so we can see, and maybe something else we may see in there that.
If you believe it might be deficient, absolutely. Then we'd like to know that before we have a problem, right? So that would be great.
So my only comment, and I agree with getting the fire department more involved, but keep in mind, it should be an independent review. So you should be getting a consultant that has no ties to the fire department, that they can certainly weigh in, but you really want it to be someone completely independent coming in.
Absolutely. But we just want them to buy into the whole process and take ownership as much as we do, Because at the end, you're gonna own it, right? So we want you to own something you feel comfortable with and that we do too. Ms. Carpenter?
So a few things. One is, I understood, and maybe incorrectly so, that we were sort of under a time crunch. Are we not under any time crunch?
It's your own time crunch, so the companies could not start until July 1st anyways.
No, but interim chief York, are we under a time crunch with you?
I believe per our discussion
If-
is we. Per our discussion, we did discuss 6 months, for the interim. And then when I was appointed, you knocked it down to 3 months for initial. But I'm willing to, the 6 months, and if it's getting close and we're not looking like we're getting anywhere, which I'd be more than happy to, keep checks on this and making sure that we are going in the right direction in a timely manner.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So-
And then my next question is, Denise, is it standard practice to bring these types of organizations in for an interview? Because what I see is they provided all the references. I see Tracy Blaze as one of the references from the town of Newbury, who is someone that I respect. I'm sure that you know her from your interactions. I think that, I'm not sure that for me, I would require to interview people if I was able to speak with the people that they've worked with previously. Because
Yeah,
I think that's just another added layer that's going to extend the amount of time. I think we can do our due diligence with regard to speaking with other entities that have used their services, but to then bring them in for an interview is going to add a whole nother layer that is really going to extend this period. I also agree with Denise with regard to the fact that I really appreciate sort of your looking at the proposals, but I do think this is the board's responsibility. We're asking for this independent review, and we're the ones who own it, not the fire department. So at the end of the day, we're requesting this, the town is funding this. We obviously want your support and that type of thing, but at the end of the day, I don't feel that this is your responsibility. I think things haven't worked out in the best way that they can because there's been issues. So that's why we bring in an independent third party.
So may I just respond to that quickly? So, again, it's the preference of the board if you want to bring people in an interview. It's not required. We certainly can get you enough references. You all can certainly call and speak once we provide references if you want additional information. My plan is to have them provide sort of a copy of a report that they did for each community, so you actually see the finished product. And then from there, you can decide if, if you want to bring them in, if you need more information, that would be a board decision.
Can you speak to, though, what the general practice is?
So it depends. So it's really all over the board. It kind of depends on what you're having done. If these companies are doing like comprehensive salary surveys, there mostly is an in-person meeting. Again, probably not with the Board of Selectmen, more with the town manager. You probably wouldn't have a formal Board of Selectmen interview process, but there usually is some in-person discussions before someone is selected,
Okay.
so.
Selectman Dunn?
No, I was just gonna say that the reason I was saying to give this to you guys is not that you per se are gonna own it, but trying to keep that relationship back and forth between us that everyone's been trying to have, between the fire department and the selectmen. And I understand that maybe we can't have you make a decision, no, just basically input is what I was looking for. It's all, give it to you, and then you filter it down through the guys and talk about it, and then it will be on us to figure out what we're gonna do with it from there.
I agree with that. And plus, we also have to see what this process really is and how we have to make ourselves available to these people doing this. I mean,
Right.
obviously, they're gonna have to be, dealing with some of us.
You guys,
Yeah,
sitting down with you guys, once the process starts.
sure.
Yep. They're gonna need to get into the department and look for equipment over it.
You all set?
Yeah, I'd like to see a copy of a report that each of these companies have done with a town the size of the town of Groveland and a call department like the town of Groveland. And it might be too much to ask for, but where the budget is around the same. But that may be a little tough. But a town that was similar to the size of the town of Groveland and with a call department.
We will ask for that. That will be a little restrictive. I don't know that we'll get many of those. They've all worked with call departments, but when we've done surveys of the call departments and the size of the community and the budgets, they're all over the place.
Well, forget the
So
budgets.
we'll ask them.
Forget the budgets, and they're just, a study that they've done with the town, the size of the town of Groveland, with the call department.
Yep.
A similar community, it might be difficult to get a three-way match on all of
Yeah,
those,
well,
but
maybe we can try for two.
Yep, I'll see what we can
I think
get.
we could probably do two.
But, just looking here, I don't see too many that I'm familiar with that are call departments. Maybe a couple.
I'm not that intimate with the fire departments around the country, so I couldn't comment on that.
So Chief, would you prefer this in hard copy, or do you want me to email them to you? What's easier for you?
I think email would work best.
Okay.
So the next course of action that you're proposing is?
The next course of action that I'm proposing is that we get some feedback from some of the folks that they had using as reference, asking those questions, what did you like, what didn't you like, what could you would like to see more, things like that, so we can get an idea. And then if we feel the need, if the board feels the need to bring in one or two of them to speak to them personally, we will. If not, then we won't. Personally, I'm gonna spend that kind of money, I wanna know who I'm dealing with. I'd like to know who I'm getting in bed with before I turn out the lights. It's a little late after that. Yes?
So, is it fair to say that we could narrow this to two between the board tonight, and then we can maybe have the selectman's assistant make some of the calls to the references in the process, while we're waiting for the fire department to do their due process?
Yeah, if you're ready to narrow it down, I mean, certainly that would be easier for us to then focus on two to get references and background
Narrow it to one,
information.
What I've done, but I mean, that's just, I understand that they may wanna give two to look at, I don't know, but they're not making the decision, we are at the end of the day.
I would agree with that.
I could easily narrow it to two. If that's what the board would like to do, we could expedite the matter by excluding one of them right away.
Right. So,
Is,
I'd make a motion, we'll see how it goes, I'll make a motion to, the PR approach, that we scrap the PR approach, and at least get rid of that one, see how that goes. That's
So-
my motion.
Could I discuss that motion?
Sure.
we don't have a second yet, so.
I'd prefer that we just go with municipal resources, and then if we encounter an issue, we can bring it back. I feel like it's a lot of work to ask somebody to do the references on somebody when that's not really our first choice. And if any of the answers are unsatisfactory, we have not taken a formal vote, and we can come back and we can revisit having her do those. I would also request that Denise make the calls, because I know Denise, and I'm more comfortable with sort of hearing your thoughts about things. And I also think that you know a lot of these town
Managers and.
and administrators. So I would prefer
I'll
that you
change my
do.
motion that we narrow it to one, the Municipal Resource Inc., in that we have Denise do her due diligence and try to figure out references or whatever with this company, and then she forwards this over to the fire chief.
I second that.
Any discussion? Okay, I'll discuss. We just, not 5 minutes ago, talked about speeding up the process. So if we get bad comments here, then we've got to waste more time by going back here. Wouldn't it save time by getting comments from both of these now, so that we don't have to go back and revisit anybody?
So that may be true, but I feel like that's less likely to happen, and I still think it's a lot of resources for Denise to have to make those calls. I think when you look at the number of people that they've worked with, I think that it's more than likely that we're going to be satisfied with municipal resources. So then it's the cost-benefit analysis of, do we have Denise do the work on another person when there's a small chance that this will not meet our needs? That's my opinion. Denise, I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
Well,
No, I'm fine either way. I mean, if you're more comfortable getting two, I don't mind calling and getting reference information on both of them. I can certainly have Caitlin help out with sort of some of the background work. I'll call and speak to them all personally, but if you're more comfortable with two, I have no problem getting two sets of references, however the board wants to proceed, I'm fine with. So I appreciate it, Lisa, but whatever you guys are comfortable with, I want to make sure you have the information you need to proceed with this.
Personally, I always like having choices in life. The more choices, the more options, the better. So I would still like to go with two. I'm prepared, like the rest of you, to cross P and R off. But I would like to get a,
I'll change my motion
bit of-
one more time.
Well, you have to, so there is a motion and a second, so I would say at least take a vote. If it
How
fails,
about a
then you
friendly
can.
amendment?
Well, let's vote on yours first.
I would just vote on the one that's, because there is a motion and a second currently.
all right, so all those in favor of bills? All those opposed? Okay, so the motion is tied 2-2. So that, it failed.
Yeah.
Okay, Bill, would you like to try again?
Okay, so I will make a motion that we go with the Edward J. Collins Junior Center and the Municipal Resource, Inc. And we accept those tonight and have either Caitlin or Denise do their due diligence on the information, and these both be forwarded to the fire chief.
So can I just make a friendly amendment that we further explore those as because we're not necessarily accepting either of them
No, no,
at this
no,
point?
no,
Just,
no.
you mean further explore, right?
Right.
Okay. Thank you. Second.
Yeah,
Okay, we
discussion.
have a motion and a second discussion.
Could I ask, I mean, I read all three of these over, and I rated them 1, 2, 3. I rated municipal resources as 1, the PR approach as 2, and the Edward Collins Center as 3. Could I ask why you thought that they were better than the PR approach?
So I feel that the PR approach does not have the experience. They don't have the resume that the
Other two.
Municipal Resources has. When I look at the towns that Municipal Resources has worked with, I feel very comfortable that that organization could come in and provide a very comprehensive report to us. I don't feel that way about the PR approach.
Well, and I didn't see, in the Edward Collins Center, I didn't see anything that really stood out as far as their resume. They supplied, what, three places. But I just didn't see that stood out as being something that was acceptable. But I'm open for,
I'll tell you, Selectman Watson, what stood out to me was the price. Two of the firms we've reached out to were very, very close in price. And the last one in question was so far off the mark that my first inclination was, what am I not getting? How can they do the same thing the other two do for a third of the cost? I worry that I'm not gonna get the value that I really am looking for in this study, in this service I'm looking for. And that was my main concern.
Can I add to that?
You can add anything you'd like.
So under their scope of work, it's very minimal compared to the others. The others really operationalized what they were going to do in a way that was much more detailed. The PR approach has a very small, it doesn't even really talk about interviewing people as part of that process. It just talks about reviewing.
Which I think would make it very difficult to really get a handle on the players, the community, the folks, the staff, without any interaction whatsoever.
So I think part of the reason that that is so much less expensive is because it really is not as involved and comprehensive as the others. And for me, if we're going to do this, I agree with Chair O'Neill that we should do it the right way.
The first time. Because we don't have money to waste to do it again.
I will say, when I did reach out to the companies, actually, all three of these companies called back with questions, and the PR approach's questions were more about how they were gonna get the information. So I do seem to think they're gonna do a lot of it off-site by reviewing the documents, where I think the other two will be more hands-on, coming on site, setting up meetings. So I do think, I think the Collins Center, part of the reason theirs is not as robust, they just do this so often that this is really what they specialize in. I think they probably, and my feeling is the name price speaks for itself. I don't think they need to be as robust, even though MRI, most of what their packet is references, really. But they are, I mean, if you look at the Mass Municipal site, you look in the Beacon, half the job searches are run by the Collins Center. They are so involved with, you know, Massachusetts municipalities that I think they probably feel they don't need to put as much in a proposal.
Yes, and with a lot of the work done on site, that's probably not gonna serve our best interest because we have infrastructure, we have equipment that needs to be physically looked at. I mean, we need a touchy-feely person in that role, not somebody that's gonna reach out and just crunch a couple of numbers. Probably not gonna help us. So we have a motion, we have a second. Selectman Watson, do you have any further?
No, I was just looking for the reason that they rated the Collins Center above the PR approach, and it seems reasonable with what everybody said.
All right, then, seeing as there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Yes.
All those opposed? Terrific. Can
So
sing
I will,
kumbaya now.
I will send all this to you in the morning, and we will plan to add this on the next agenda, the 25th
25th.
meeting.
I think you'll find it extremely comprehensive, both of them. But if you find it deficient in any way, please, let's add to the scope now, better now than later. Okay, looks like we're at old business. So we'll begin with,
Just a quick question.
yeah, quick question. Did I miss something?
That letter that we got, is that under, where do we,
Oh,
So I would say new business for that,
new business?
new business, yeah.
that's, yeah. All right, under old business, Selectman Carpenter, would you like to kick it off?
Sure. Just in response to a letter that we received from the Pentucket's Art. Just in response to a
Yeah,
letter
that's
that we
new business.
received.
No business.
Oh, I'm sorry,
We're under old still.
but I didn't see a new business section on here. Where is it?
We'll bring it in Selectman's time. We'll-
Oh, Selectmen's time, that's what I meant. I
Okay, I'm
apologize.
sorry.
That's what I meant.
Sorry about that.
No, that was my
okay.
fault.
I'm all set, thank you.
All righty. Mr. Dunn, Selectman Dunn.
No, it's just, I had talked to Denise already about the hole, and nothing's moved forward with that. We're still progressing with it and going slow, but we're doing it. And there was one other thing, I didn't write it down. The pines, over the pines, how are we making out over there? The
Yep.
working on that backfield.
Yep, so the loom has been spread. I believe they plan to, and I don't remember the correct terminology, Bill, so you'll have to help me. They're gonna do sort of the grinding like we did.
Oh, split seed?
Well, they're gonna do something else first, and then they're gonna hydro seed. We have specifications out looking for the well pump currently. They're working on getting a shed so that we can install the electrical equipment. And they are working on getting an irrigation quote. So that's pretty much where it stands.
Okay.
It's still actively being worked on, but right now, we're just waiting for some prices to come in.
Has the highway had any time to work on the bathrooms at all?
Yep, the bathrooms are being worked on. We are in the process of, we just got quotes back to buy the equipment, and then we're working on getting it installed. So that is moving forward. We've done all the sewer work. We just did a little additional electrical work down there. So yes, that is actively being worked on as well.
Is there any time, like when they have any time when they think it will be done, or?
That I don't know. I haven't really, we're still in the process of getting the quotes for the equipment. So I think once we're ready to go with that, I don't really expect it to take too much longer to get it installed, but that I don't know.
Okay.
Well, can I just clarify, what are you talking about getting installed?
The well?
All
The well or the bathroom?
No, the bathrooms,
The bathroom.
all the bathrooms. We're in the process, so we have parts lists, getting prices on the parts. And then we're looking to get prices on having someone install it.
But won't that have to be done through the bid process and all that?
No, it's actually not that much money. So
Okay.
that's, but we're doing it through the process, so we're
So it'll
collecting
go through
quotes and,
highway?
yep,
It's gonna go through highway?
no.
No.
No, I'm actively soliciting quotes, that's what I'm
Okay.
saying. So once we
Alright.
get the quotes back, then we can give it the go-ahead. Each individual piece, it's only like $11,000 for all of the equipment. So all we need to do is solicit 3 quotes, we can move forward with that. Same thing with the installation. So once we get our quotes, we're good to sort of move forward. I think everything else is done now, all the groundwork is done. The highway will do things like install the partitions between the stalls, install the handicap bars, things like that. But an actual plumber will come in and put the physical equipment in.
Okay, so the boat ramp, how's that going? I haven't heard much complaints or anything, but,
No, the boat ramp's been going great. I think I told you guys a few meetings ago, we've partnered with the Haverhill High School.
Rowing, yeah.
So the rowing team is using that every day. They installed some temporary ramps on the end of our boat ramp. It's been great. You know, we haven't heard any complaints this year. I will say the only complaint we have from the town side is just our partnership across the river with Casimir. Because our harbor master no longer works there.
Yep.
We no longer have access to a mooring barge. That's why there's only one boat out there. So we're trying to find someone to hire as an independent contractor to come in and drop all the moorings for anyone who wants one, because we don't have one in-house. We were using the one across the way.
are they still using their harbor master over there? Can we hire who they're using over there?
I don't know. So we have the same harbor master. We still share Haverhill's harbor master, but he's no longer affiliated with the Casimir
Do you want me
Arena.
to look into see who Cosmere's using to see if I can figure it out?
Yeah, no, so our dock masters have
Oh.
done that. They reached out to them, and then
Alright,
there's
okay.
someone in West Newbury that they had the name. So they put out some calls to see if
So
there
they're
is.
handling it?
Yeah, see if they can get someone to come in and
Okay.
coordinate a day that, like a Saturday, that they can sort of
Right.
bring everyone's moorings out there. That's the only sort of downside, is we don't have a mechanism to do that ourselves.
Okay, so they're handling that.
The dog park, so I don't know if you guys have seen on our website, so we moved the entrance to the dog park. We've been talking about this since we really redid the Pines. So it's just been moved, when you're looking at the dog park, all the way to the right. There's a separate parking lot now and a separate entrance, so it removes the cars from in front of the boat ramp. So all of their stuff has been moved, their picnic tables, all to make it easier for that. So if anyone hasn't seen it yet, there's a new entrance. So follow the driveway all the way down to the right, and then that's the new parking lot.
Great.
Under old business, I had talked to you earlier and you told us that the, road commissioners, you went and did the state work for that. That's being in the process.
Yep, so the road commissioner, I sent in the special legislation request to both Senator Tarr's office and Representative Mira's office. Both offices have confirmed they received the packet, which contained the town meeting vote, the election results, and I sent a cover letter identifying how the selectmen, the finance board, and the road commissioner all support this legislative action. They are coming to their recess, so it was unlikely it would be heard until the early fall, but they will do what they can. I figured once we sort of get towards the end of the summer, we'll start making our phone calls. Bob Arakalian has offered to assist me into the State House to push support for this if we need to. So we'll see what we need to do once they're getting close to putting that on the docket.
Okay, and lastly, do you know how many CPA projects we have that aren't completed? Do you know off the top of your head?
You say CPA? is that what you
Yes.
said?
CPA or
So-
any kind of projects like that that haven't been in the process
Yeah,
of?
so we have a handful.
Starting
There
to
are
put together a list.
There are 2 CPA projects, the library, historical documents, and the cemetery restoration,
Are they-
front area restoration, are coming to an end on June 30th. So the library plans to spend all their money between now and then. The cemetery has been busy, as you know, planting trees and flowers and finishing sort of some of their restoration work. In addition to that, we have, I think, 4 projects that have another year on them. There's quite a few. So the,
Like, I should refrain it. Are they all in the process of still being worked on? There's none that
Oh.
haven't?
Well, so the new projects, new as in not this past town meeting, last year's town meeting, the cemetery, I think they have 3 that nothing has started on. And I think that's partially because Bob Guptill was a commissioner at the time, and he's no longer a commissioner, and he was really spearheading those. Those are the only projects that have not had any movement. I've been in contact with the new commissioners, we've talked about them, but I think they have other priorities right now. Otherwise, all the projects are at least being worked on, or, I think the only other one that has not, but we've talked about it, is the conservation restrictions on town forest that Mike needed some more time to work on. So that was the only one I think that really, oh, in the veto room, nothing's happened with that since that was re-upped last year. That's just been sitting there.
This might be ignorant, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. Have you ever heard of the Board of Selectmen doing a CPA project themselves, submitting one and doing it themselves?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Does
I would
somebody mind?
recommend it.
Is that
I would
something that-
recommend it because it's not,
Something you're looking at?
it's not, you know, if you have a particular interest, no one
Well-
else is gonna submit it on behalf of the town, so.
Well, I just think that I think that as a board, and I'm not speaking because of the chair, but I personally, I would like to see us submit something to try and get like the Pines. I'm not saying what's going on down there now, but there's other phases. I'd rather see the money being spent in our infrastructure. I always push for V4, and let's come up with some ideas, maybe mine, one of them would be to the Pines. I mean, I think it's a well worth, project to keep going and move forward. It's up to the board, maybe we can put on for another agenda item or something.
Yeah, I think the
Certainly.
playground down there could be
Right.
revamped.
Revitalized.
Right.
I think, yep, CPA, recreation, I think,
I
you know,
definitely think that playground needs to be.
yes, it needs a lot of work.
It's yeah.
We've talked in the past about the possibility of maybe doing a splash pad in this front section. That's something that could be explored. Certainly, if there's something, and, you know, obviously, Bill, I can help the board. If you have a particular interest, I could certainly get quotes and put the proposal together. But I think absolutely, if there's things that you feel that we can be doing, then the selectmen should be sponsoring some projects.
Okay.
Right, well, I'll leave that up to the chair. I don't wanna step on his feet, but that was just a suggestion, that's all. And just, if we can do it, I think as a board, we could possibly, you know, maybe isolate for the next year on one of those projects, maybe.
Let's sit down and discuss.
Sure.
So put it on the agenda, the next meeting,
Next
or
week something,
at a
whatever.
future meeting?
Next one of
Maybe,
the
maybe
week.
next week, everyone can think of a project that they'd wanna see, and we can talk about it or something.
And just a caution on that, I know Mike has always told us that if you're using CPA funds, you can't restrict it just to the use of the town of Groveland.
You can't.
Can't restrict it just
Right.
for the use of the town of Groveland if you're using CPA
Oh,
funds.
you mean the park down there?
Right, so the park is open to the
Isn't it
public
open right now to the
anyways. Yep.
public?
Yeah. It's open now, we can't restrict it now either, right?
Correct. So, I mean, I guess if there was something more specific that you were looking at, then yes, it could not be
To a certain
restricted.
degree, you can. I mean, people have to take out permits, you know, the high school, the Babe Ruth, this girls softball.
Correct.
But not like the playground and, you know,
Oh,
there's,
yeah.
certain types of things I think we can,
By permit,
like the
Through-
dog park, we
through-
haven't been able to, and the,
I don't know if you could.
Right, I mean, you could certainly, it doesn't preclude you from requiring permits to use, but you couldn't turn away an out-of-town group from using it if the space was available, and
And no one else was.
so that's why we opened the boat ramp up. The boat ramp used to be exclusively Groveland. That's now open to all residents. We have a different fee structure.
I didn't know that.
Yes, so our
When did that
out-of-town,
happen?
2 years ago when we did the boat ramp
CPA.
over.
So Groveland residents get first dibs, though?
No, because it's unlimited. So we don't allow non-residents to have a mooring, but the boat ramp access is unlimited. We just, if we need more keys, we just get more keys. So it's $25 for Groveland residents, $50 for non-resident.
And has that been significant revenue generating?
No, but we have quite a few. I actually, a few guys came by last week. I actually found it funny because they were from Billerica, and we got to talking, and I said, "How did you find us?" He said, "We've been paying to put our boats in at Haverhill, and we keep driving by seeing this beautiful ramp." He goes, "I was on a mission to find where it was." He goes, "And I tracked it down to here." So we have more people as they're seeing it, and as
And
it's
is
looking nicer
$50
out there.
enough?
I think the boat ramp fees are way too low personally for what they're getting.
Well, I don't know about, I'm comfortable with Groveland fees being low, but I'm not comfortable with,
I just, yeah,
Yeah,
OPM. more of it.
Yeah, so that's something we can certainly look into.
And what would we do to go about that?
It's just a vote.
So can we put that on a future agenda as well?
I imagine we could, along with a lot of other fees that I think are way too low. Maybe we ought to have a fee night.
Well, on that topic, I know the board in the past has been sort of against fees, but you should at least look at them on an annual basis. You should be reviewing your surrounding communities and where we fall, and that should be part of an annual process. So like every July, we
Let's
look
do
at all
it.
the fees for the, anything that you're in control of, you should really be reviewing.
Right.
And if you choose not to change them, that's fine, but you should at least go through that process and look, because we are well under what the other communities
I
are
agree.
charging.
Could you have the new assistant put a list of all the fees together, and then one night we can talk about it?
Yeah,
Yeah, that would be
Absolutely.
good.
and I'll get recommendations from the boards that, are overseeing those fees, what they would recommend.
And maybe a list of surrounding towns and their fee structure.
Oh, yeah, well, we
and
would get that
stuff.
as part of it, yep.
Mr. Dunn, anything else?
No, good, thank you.
Selectman Watson?
No, I'm all
I'm
set.
sorry, the time for public comment is at the beginning of the meeting, Mr. Logan. And if I allow you to do it, then... I'm not sure. Mr. Watson,
I'm all set.
you all set?
All set.
So Selectmen...
We're not talking about the
reports.
pond.
Yeah. Selectmen reports.
I don't have any, thank you.
Anything on the town center? How's the committee going? Any progress being made?
So
Anything we should know about?
right now, we're working on putting together some public education stuff, but I had spoken to Denise about that. We can't do anything with the public relations group that we use until after July 1st. So we're just going to focus on providing community education about what we would want to do, and because we feel that part of the challenge we have is that people aren't fully informed about the fact that we're really not looking to spend any money. That the way that we sort of discussed it would really look at Groveland putting no money. But I think people don't necessarily understand that, so we have a community education piece that we need to work on.
Good, no money, I'm all for that. Mr. Watson, anything to add on your open offices, your
No, nothing to
Wednesday
report.
meetings? Okay, Mr. Dunn, Selectman Dunn? I had a very quiet open office here Saturday, so I have really nothing to report other than I stole Bill's files.
And we have not had a school committee meeting, we have one tomorrow.
We have one tomorrow night, High School Building Committee, so there is nothing to report there to probably next meeting.
Could I ask a question here of Denise? Denise had mentioned that you were going to a meeting regarding marijuana use in municipalities. Could you tell us about, I don't know if you plan to talk about that on your finance director's time?
I hadn't, but I certainly can.
Okay.
Yes, so I attended a meeting,
Last Wednesday.
it was not last Wednesday, it was 2 Wednesdays ago, I believe, when I was sick, because it was a very long meeting. It was very informative, but it was not what I expected, actually. It was more how communities bring in marijuana companies.
Okay.
And what to expect when recreation becomes legal July 1st. So it talked about,
And have we had any applications?
we have not.
Okay.
So the application process is lengthy, they went over that. There's about a 6-month lead time, so right now I can pretty much say for most of the year, we're safe. They have had quite a few, so the seminar was hosted by the Cannabis Control Commission and KP Law, who was sort of spearheading the municipality's response to these, and then Merrimack Valley Planning. So they talked about sort of the do's and don'ts on what is allowed and what will not be allowed. So just so you are aware, they really are regulating the recreational side quite a bit. Companies cannot have any marijuana displays on their windows. They can't have products displayed in the windows. Their products cannot have any symbols on it, with the exception of this product contains THC, is that what it is? I guess, which I was shocked by, there's like 600 different consumables that will be sold in the state. So they're working on that, and what the serving size is, and how they can sell these items. It has to be in a specific serving size, so they can't just sell sort of a brick of something. There has to be individual serving size components, because they're trying to make it as low dose as they can, I guess. The serving size is lower than the national average of recreational marijuana states, because they're not sure how it's gonna play out. So they kept things low to start, and they figured they'll see where it goes from there. Haverhill, I guess, has some companies interested. Newburyport have some interested. No one was there from Merrimack or West Newbury, so I'm not sure how things are playing out in their communities. But it was very informative. Again, it was more how to work with these companies. So I will just say on that note, though, keep in mind that we do need to work on what we want to do for recreational marijuana.
What was our deadline?
So we have a moratorium, if the AG approves it, of December 31st. So we will have to have, most likely, if this is something the board wants to pursue, we will need a special town meeting in the fall, most specifically for recreational marijuana, which was very common in communities having special town meetings just to address this topic, because they are so heavily attended.
Well, I want to just add to that. I think that we absolutely need to involve the townspeople in that decision. So I would propose that we definitely stay on top of that, because it's not fair for us to miss the opportunity for them to have a voice. What needs to be put in place to ensure that that happens?
So I would recommend that once, it might be tough in the summer, but that's really when we would need to do it. Maybe on an off night, hold a public hearing to get some feedback, more specifically, because the regulations can be pretty specific. I will get you copies of some communities' regulations, but from what they've said, you can pretty much regulate everything. So you can regulate it, you can completely disallow it in the community, you can allow certain components, you can allow some things, so it's very specific. You may want to get some feedback on that.
So
So
can,
we can prohibit this entirely,
With recreation, yes.
and then
Right
everything
now,
else
you still
becomes
can,
moot.
but you can prohibit it from being sold in the community.
and
I
then
don't
do
know
you,
if
do
that
you
was-
need, so if you prohibit it from being sold in the community, do you still need to go through all of this?
Yes, so because we passed it here, there's a little caveat to that, which I don't know if we fall into, but because it passed here in November 2016, it
You
requires
mean
a
in the
ballot
state of
question.
Massachusetts or in
It
Groveland?
passed in Groveland on the state election ballot of November 2016. Because it passed in Groveland, it requires a ballot question to prohibit it.
Okay.
Now, what council has said is, it does not require a ballot question to prohibit parts of it, but if you want to prohibit it completely, it would require a ballot question and town meeting,
Just for the recreational piece?
just for the recreational piece, yes.
So that's the piece that I think town members have a right to be part of. So if they were in support of having it statewide, that doesn't necessarily mean that they wanted to have it in Groveland.
Right.
And that's the component that I really think it's important that we allow community members to have a voice in.
Right, so I would recommend, like I said, have maybe a public hearing, or even a few between now and when we would have a fall town meeting, so that you can iron out pretty much what the general consensus is before going in to ask town meeting to actually support a bylaw regulating it.
Yeah, that's,
And if we had a fall town meeting, what would be the time period that we would do that?
Well, I would say we have no other business right now that I would know of, so it's whatever time period you feel is appropriate.
The reason that I ask that, so obviously it needs to be before December 31st.
Correct.
The reason that I ask that is, what's the timeline that we should be looking at public hearings? So let's say we were to hypothetically do a fall town meeting in like November, and we did a public hearing like maybe in August and October or something. Is that a reasonable?
Yes, so special town meeting would require 14 days for posting. We would have, so I have to figure out when the ballot question would need to be. So again,
Okay.
I guess it depends where the board is heading in
and
the
then
restrictions.
come backwards from there.
Right, so if you're looking to prohibit everything, then we need to, because you have to call the election, you have to give people time to register to vote, et cetera. So there is quite a window when it comes to an election.
So
If
you're
just-
saying that the language has to be either that we're recommending prohibition, it can't be do you want to have recreational marijuana in Groveland? Do you know what I'm
No, 'cause
saying?
that's already been asked.
So then the next question, so what would the question look like?
So the question would be, similar to, my guess is it would be similar to like our road commission, our legislation, question we just had. Do you support the special legislation moving forward and town meeting question X, and the town meeting warrant would outline the full bylaw articulating that you are restricting it, I believe. I don't know that it
So
would
we'd
be
have to
a-
do that whole bylaw.
we have to do a bylaw specific to recreational marijuana.
Can we get specifics on what needs to be done from town council to, just to make sure that we've got all our ducks in a row, all our,
Yeah, so I think I gave you guys, but it's been a while now. It was like last November when they gave us sort of the timeline. I can fine tune that again. A lot of it, though, is gonna come down to what you guys wanna see in town and what you don't wanna see.
So what I would respectfully request is, can we get some samples from other communities to look at? And then we can have a meeting to discuss, and then we can move forward from there.
well, what kind of communities? Communities that have completely prohibited, communities that have accepted, or communities in between?
We'll get whatever we can. So I can have Caitlin, like I said, it's been very public, so we've seen who's had public hearings, who's had special town meetings just for this topic. We'll get a sampling of everything. We'll see who's prohibited it completely, who's restricted certain components, and who doesn't care.
When it went to our town ballot, wasn't it already defeated?
No, so it was defeated, so the question that went to the ballot was similar to what you're looking at, but it was a non-binding question, seeing if people wanted medical marijuana in town.
Medical, I'm talking about recreational.
Right, recreational has not gone to the
Never
ballot
gone.
yet, specific
Okay,
for
right.
Groveland. When it was on the November 2016 ballot to allow Massachusetts to
It was a
become a
massive-
recreational
statewide.
marijuana state,
That went.
it passed in Groveland affirmatively. Because of that, it has to go back to the ballot to completely restrict it.
Perhaps you could check to see, we have a state election coming up in November, if it could be added to that November ballot.
I will, that's tough to get things on the state election, but we can certainly ask that.
Does it have to be a special election? I mean, or
See.
can we piggyback onto that one?
Yeah, it would save money.
Well, again, state elections are tough to piggyback on, but we can ask.
Who's gonna write up the bylaw? Us?
I can get samples of bylaws from the communities
And then you
too. I
want
mean,
us to just
I
pick
would say
one?
we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Once you know what you want to focus on, we
Then
can
pick
look at the
one.
samples and then have council weigh
We
in on
might
it.
pick parts of, a
Right,
number of them.
Right, okay.
Anything else for finance director's time?
Yes, but I forgot what I had to talk to you guys about.
So with respect to that, Denise,
Yes.
I would just respectfully request that you keep us on task in order that we don't miss any deadlines, because I think that's really important, and I want to make sure that we're following the guidelines.
Certainly. I will
As
put
well as the
together,
law.
I'll put together a timeline and back into it. There was something I wanted to talk to you guys about, but it's come and gone. So I guess I'll save it for next time.
All righty, moving right along, selectmen's time. Selectman Watson, we'll kick off with you first.
I don't have anything.
Selectman Dunn?
No, I think I kinda went through everything.
Okay, Selectman Carpenter.
Nothing, thank you.
Yes, we do have something for selectmen's time.
Yes, now's your chance. Got so carried away with the marijuana stuff, you,
Well, I forgot,
You
it was
forgot.
new business. Okay, so, I don't know if you've had a chance to review the letter that came to the Board of Selectmen. What it's looking for is just support from our board. The Pentucket Arts Foundation has applied, or is part of a group of, I don't know if they would call it finalists, but of people that are eligible to apply for a $30,000 grant to fund a public art experience. And it requires at least one municipal and one business partner. They've partnered with Haverhill Bank in West Newbury, and they're looking to partner with the 3 towns as their municipal partners. So Merrimack and West Newbury have already approved that. They're looking for Groveland's approval to move forward on that. It doesn't require anything more than our approval. It's not a financial commitment.
Yep.
May I chime in on that?
Sure.
So what they're looking for us, not financial, but they're looking for sort of an in-kind support, allowing them access to specified municipal buildings to use as a canvas. So if we said you could use town hall, I put some pictures down that they had sent if you didn't see them on the email. This is all done with tape. It's tape art. So they would do drawings and designs on a public building. They have asked for meeting space to allow them to meet, to have these discussions. They've asked for some folding chairs so that when they're doing these demonstrations, people can sit and watch and enjoy the experience. Some trash barrels, and the ability to promote the experience on our website and et cetera. So we can certainly meet all of those requirements if that's something the board wants to support. As Lisa said, Merrimack and West Newbury have already supported the project, and they are looking for
Our support.
approval by Thursday. So Thursday is their deadline.
So I'd like to make a motion that we join Merrimack and West Newbury as municipal partners on this Essex County Community Foundation grant application.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Point of order. I don't think we can take a vote on the finance director's time or selectmen's time. It's not on the agenda. I know the time is short, but I don't think that's allowed.
It could be allowed at the chairman's discretion as an unforeseen agenda item.
Seeing as the time is so short, and this was something that wasn't transitioned properly, I guess, from former Chair Wood to myself, so I was not aware of it until this afternoon myself. I wouldn't want to unduly hold it up just for that, unless you have a really extenuating circumstances why you'd not like to see this project go forward.
I have nothing to not want it to go forward. I just think procedurally, according to the selectmen's criteria and the selectmen's time, you don't take a vote, but
So can I-
that's all. I don't see any problem with it going forward. I just think that, I don't think we should be setting a precedent and taking a vote on something that wasn't on the agenda.
so, Mr. Chair.
Um,
I would just like to,
Carpenter.
I understand what Selectman Watson is saying. I think in this case, the result is onerous if we don't take a vote. And I don't think that there's any public, this is not the type of vote that I think that by not meeting that criteria is harming. And, if this was, exactly. If this was a type of vote on something that, other people should really weigh in on and had some of those criteria, I'd be more concerned about it. I think in this case, it becomes more onerous if we don't take a vote. I'm willing to, I don't know if that's
Well, I think
allowed.
under Robert's Rules of Order, they do allow something that's not on the agenda to be taken up under a suspension of the rules, to
Okay.
allow an agenda item to be brought up that's not on, voted on, that's not on the agenda. That's probably the best way to go. We should seek a approval for, and a second for a suspension of the rules to vote on it.
Okay, do we have a motion to suspend the rules to allow this particular motion to carry forward?
Motion to suspend the rules for this motion to carry.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. When they do the work, do they clean up afterwards? They'll clean it all up and...
Yeah, so it's a 10-day period, and they will, so one of those pictures, I think the last one actually shows them taking the tape back up. So
Okay.
they will remove it all, and it will be like it never happened.
So we, motion and a second, all those in favor,
Yes.
suspending the rules, now.
Um,
Your motion.
Motion to approve Groveland joining as a municipal partner on the Essex County Community Foundation grant.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing as no further discussion, all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries, terrific.
That's it, right?
Selectmen's time, I think we were all,
It was me.
And unless you have something, I make a motion that we adjourn at
I
8:12.
do have something. And listen, I've got a ball game to go to, you know,
Tonight?
I don't enjoy being here any more than anyone else does, but if there's things to be done, there's things to be done. So what I'd like, Denise, if you could put me together a list. Right now, I have a list of a bunch of open items, things that really need to be tied up. We've got the fire chief, we've got a road commissioner, we've got the Pines restrooms, the fields, we've got a town manager, we've got Groveland Days, we've got, if you could get me a list of the open CPA projects, that would be great. Just so I know what we have open, what we have on our plate that still needs to be eaten. Because I want, some of this stuff is just bugging me beyond end. I want it done. I've just reached my patience in a lot of this stuff. I'd like to make a personal appeal to anybody in the town. We desperately, desperately, desperately need someone to step up on the ZBA.
Yes, I posted that on our website today, and it's gone to Facebook and Twitter, looking for volunteers for that.
Mr. McDonald has graciously served in that capacity for well over 3 years. He is just exhausted with his time. He is extremely busy and has asked that we remove him from that. But in order for the ZBA to do any business at all, they're just short members. So we desperately need someone to step up and volunteer for that.
I'll step up and fill in until they find someone.
That would be great, and you make a great Band-Aid, Selectman Dunn, but I'm looking for a more permanent solution.
No, I understand. If they need
And-
a fill-in and it's gonna be
Yep.
held up, I mean,
Absolutely. So if we could get somebody, if somebody could understand my plea and how the town is in dire straits here, we'd appreciate if somebody could step up. Selectmen's time. Again, I just want to mention something that kind of started at the beginning of the meeting, about respect, courtesy. Listen, I'm the last guy to believe everybody in town is going to get together and sing Kumbaya in the parking lot. But there should be a certain amount of professional respect and courtesy that's extended to each and every employee in the town, regardless of how you feel about them. I'm not asking you to go out there and have a beer with them after work. I'm not asking you to share communion with them at church. But I'm asking you to act like an adult, act professional, and act courteous, and live by the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And if we all do that every day, it's gonna be a better place than we live in today, right? Wouldn't you agree? I mean, the world is full of name-calling and just a lot of garbage out there now that comes from the top. I wanna change the culture in this town. I wanna change it so that when people come to this town, they feel like they're in the most friendly place on the universe, not just in this state, not just in this country, but in the entire universe. It costs a lot less to put a smile than a frown. So please, let's everybody start pulling the rope in the same direction. Let's be courteous to our fellow employees, our fellow citizens. That's all I ask. And I think,
So just that one list of the CPA projects, that's what you're looking for?
and any other open items that, you know, such as the fire chief, the road commission, things we have on our plate. Oh, I do have one more item, a couple more items. I'm sorry to keep you here, but I need to get this. Selectman Watson, you had said at the last meeting you have a lot of time and energy on your hands, and I'd like to ask you to use some of that. I'd really like to see this town get a senior center. I really would. So I'd like to ask you to revitalize that committee, to try and get it going again. I'd like to ask that, if you would, to put together a survey. I think the last one was 40-some-odd years old, 45, if I'm not correct, if I'm not mistaken. So I'd be hard-pressed to think that anybody that took the survey, even if they were as young as 55, might still be alive today. Let's see what the seniors in this town today are looking for. Would you mind trying to energize that? Selectman Watson?
Sure, just a couple points come to mind is, how are you gonna get it out to the people? You're gonna send it out? If you do, you need money to run things off, you need money to send it out, postage, you need envelopes.
You actually don't. You can do it on SurveyMonkey with a link, and it's free.
I'm sorry, you can do it on what?
Survey Monkey, online. But before we get to spending any kind of money, are you willing to try and, spearhead that? So maybe we can get the seniors what they need and what they deserve? I'm looking for somebody to pick up that ball and run with it.
I can see if there's any interest out there.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
So may I just make two quick comments on that? So I will say that existing senior center building committee is still actively pursuing things. So you might want to reach back out to John Osborne. He hasn't lost his oomph for this, and he is
Zeal.
still.
I didn't think he would.
Working on this, so you may
Good.
want to do that. Another option is, you certainly we could put a town information survey in with the tax bills for any quarter, as long as it does not increase the cost of postage, and you could ask people to drop it off at town hall if you wanted to. So, for those, every resident, every homeowner will receive a tax bill. You could put in something like that, just soliciting basic information, similar to what we would do with the master plan.
There's some great
So,
ideas.
just another option.
So if Selectman Watson would take that upon himself and get that going, I think everybody in the town would appreciate it. I know I would certainly appreciate it. And Mr. Dunn, Selectman Dunn, I want to see that business development, I want to see that really going. Kickstart that, whatever you need from this board. I think we should lend Mr. Dunn every hand he can get. Hopefully, we're not looking at just banks. Banks don't bring in a lot of money. We need to think out of the box. We need to think big. We need revenue.
I would recommend that if he's going to spearhead that he really think about that Merrimack Valley Planning Committee meeting that they have. I
Any
can get the
suggestions?
information from John, Greg Stark. I can forward the information that he gave me, because it sounds like they specifically do strategic plans around attracting businesses. So if he was interested or willing to do that, I can forward that information.
So I will just comment on that. I believe they finished those meetings, they actually distributed their plan today. So that was more specific, looking at the region as a whole and looking at community centers and different, I can certainly forward that plan to all of you, but the draft came out this morning. So I don't think they'll be having any of those meetings anymore. But Merrimack Valley Planning is a great resource. I can also put you in touch, Bill, with the Mass Office of Business Development. I've toured the community with them, trying to get some ideas for our town. They are very willing to help us. Again, it's a matter of who we attract, but Merrimack Valley Planning, they're all willing to do whatever we need. It's just a matter of figuring out what we need. So there are some great resources I can give you on that.
Have you reached out to anybody at Chesterton at all?
I did, when I was a chair, I had sat down and talked to the chairman and what have you, but they have changed, shortly right after they changed chairs. I have not talked to anyone recently over there.
Selectman Watson, you have a lot of contacts all over. You think this is something that you could assist Jim and
Yeah, one of the
Selectman
big
Dunn
drawbacks is there's not many areas in town for businesses, commercial, industrial. Maybe the thought ought to be to have the zoning look at changing some of the zones from, maybe from business to industrial or commercial, or some part of residential to business. One of the big drawbacks that I'm hearing is the infrastructure. No sewerage, no water in some of them. Chesterton is another example. They got a big septic system there, have it pumped out every so often, probably every week, every 2 weeks or so. And, I'm sure that if there was, if they were approached, and would they be willing to help pay for a sewerage line that goes out through Strawberry Fields, out through the back of their property? I'm sure they'd jump on board in a heartbeat. It would save them money in the long run. And the same with some of these developers that putting in houses. If they would extend the sewer line, probably some of them are upwards of $50,000 to put in a septic system, depending on where they are, probably. But I'm sure a lot of them would it would be to their benefit to help extend the sewer line and in some cases the water line. And that's one of the biggest drawbacks for businesses. We don't have enough area and we don't have the sewerage and the water.
Or is that something you'd be willing to work alongside?
Oh, yeah, I'll work with- yeah, I'll
Selectman
work with-
Dunn in trying to,
I mean, he knows the problem's the same as I do.
I was gonna ask, can I ask directly to Selectman Watson? Would you wanna head up the business and I'll head up the housing, the elderly complex? Would you feel better with that?
No, I'd feel better with the other.
Okay.
Yeah, I know you had got that started, the businesses.
No, I don't-
And, go ahead.
Okay.
You can take that ball.
super.
Bill, can I just comment on what Ed just mentioned? So one of the hardships with extending sewer that we've been having conversations with the water department is the Strawberry Field piece. So that is a town-owned property, and it's unlikely that any developer or business will pay to run it through that portion of the town. It's very expensive. So we've talked a little bit about the Water and Sewer Commissioners coming here and talking to the board and seeing if that's something that the board is in favor of, allocating funds to pay for that portion of a sewer connection. You know, Chesterton or some of those contractors may pay for their piece of it, but it's quite a long way to go through town property.
Not that we sit here and hold you guys up all night, but one quick thought of mine was gonna be, to reach out to all the business people in town with a letter somehow, and then invite them here to a meeting night here, and we can find out what their needs are, what they think they want, how they think we can grow, what we can do to help. That's where I was gonna start out with there, that end of it. And then, I'm sure they'll talk about new business, I'm sure they'll talk about expanding, or whatever. At least they know the town's here to help them move forward. So that's the first piece I was gonna start with. And then, to try and get new businesses, like Ed said, we're gonna have a hard time with the septic, but there are septics you can design, there's different things, but maybe we can talk to them about somehow kicking some money. That's all the conversation. It's gonna take conversation, it's gonna take some, back and forth, negotiations through the town or whatever, and what have you. I've seen towns that, and I don't, people wanna hear this on TV right now, but I've heard towns come in and they'll say, hey, listen, we'll give you a tax break for 2 or 3 years to get you in here, and then they can invest money into their business, get it up and running, and then we have a good tax base, but.
So that's something that the Office of Business Development can help you with. There
Yeah.
are tax incentive programs.
Right.
Again, with our infrastructure, you'd need a larger company, I think, to really
Right,
make that
right.
worthwhile. But
Right.
they have low-interest loan programs for businesses. They have tax incentive programs that the community can adopt. So there are definitely some options. Bill, you should speak with Debbie Webster. She can give you a list of businesses from the personal property bills.
Yeah.
Or we can make labels from that. So if you want to, draft a letter, we can certainly fine tune it and send that out for you. For whatever information you're either looking for, or you want to present to the businesses, we could use that avenue.
Right. Well, I think that's gonna be our first start.
Awesome, looking forward to it. That's it for me.
Make a motion that we adjourn at 8:25.
Do we have a second, or did everybody fall asleep?
Second.
No further discussion, all those in favor? All right, opposed, great.
And don't forget, I need signatures.